Hey, what's up, and welcome back to Interpreting the Stars, where today we are taking a look at X-Men, the 2000 film that kind of spawned its own cinematic universe of sorts before people really made cinematic universes. And unlike the MCU, fans of X-Men are mostly divided on these movies, on which one they love, which one they hate. It's really 50-50 when it comes down to these movies. I'm more on the love it spectrum than anything else, as I really enjoyed the series. I've watched every single one multiple times. Other than Dark Phoenix, I have yet to see it, and before you say don't get your hopes up, I'm going to get my hopes up. Why? Because I love X-Men The Last Stand, and most people hate it. And I really enjoyed X-Men Apocalypse, and most people hate it. And most people hate the Dark Phoenix film. However, that means nothing to me because I like most of the movies everybody else hates. There is one movie in this entire series that I'm not a huge fan of. I will get into it. That's X-Men Origins Wolverine. But I'm re-reviewing all of these movies up to that point in the next 7 weeks. So there's a possibility that my ratings could change for each and every one, including X-Men Origins Wolverine. Now, when I rewatched the X-Men 2000 film, I can tell you that my score for it went up. It was originally at 89%. I won't tell you how much it went up. I will tell you at the end of this review. Just know that it did go up. Now, like I said, the X-Men fans are mostly divided when it comes down to loving or hating these movies, but I think the first movie in 2000 was as universally good as humanly possible. I think most people really enjoy this one. Why? Why is it so good? Why is it so nostalgic in a way? Why do people keep thinking about this movie over anything else? It's 19 years old at this point. There is no one answer for that question. There is so much things that are good about this movie that I could probably spend 90 minutes to make a documentary on explaining what makes this movie so good, because there is just so many metaphorical things going on in this movie, specifically when it comes down to civil rights. That's actually really, really impressive. Take Professor X and Magneto, two people who are supposed to be head-to-head, good and evil, and it's not exactly that easy. You have Professor X, who is basically Martin Luther King Jr., and you have Magneto, who is basically Malcolm X. Basically two sides of the same coin. They're after the same idea. They're just planning to go about it two very, very different ways, which makes them foes. The one thing that actually stood out to me the most when I watched it this time specifically, their literary roles when it comes down to the narrative. Think about a protagonist. There's three things that you should look for to define what a protagonist is in a story, in a movie, in whatever. First, they are the prime mover of plot. Everything in the movie happens as a result of their actions. 2, there may be a group of people in the movie or the story or whatever that feel an imbalance in the world that needs fixing, that needs correcting, that needs a resolve, and it is the protagonist's mission to actively seek the resolve of that conflict. 3 is probably the most important thing of all, and that is that the protagonist feels a very deep sense of value in resolving that conflict. There is only one character that has all three traits, and that's Magneto. Magneto is the protagonist in the movie in the same way that Thanos is the protagonist in Avengers Infinity War. Protagonist doesn't mean hero. It can be the villain, which just makes things a lot more interesting when you watch the movie. It just makes it more unique. You feel more for this character, which makes it a lot harder to just pick sides. One of the greatest things about this series as a whole with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen is the fact that they made great arguments on both sides on who to choose to follow. So obviously there's a lot of stuff going on in the background that's really interesting to watch, really interesting to see unfold, but there's also a lot of other things, not so much in the background, that are also very, very good, like casting. Everybody in this movie does such a really good job. It's very, very nostalgic when you watch. Landing Hugh Jackman was a freaking goldmine when it comes down to Wolverine. I think we all know that and all accept that. Patrick Stewart as Professor X, amazing. Ian McKellen as Magneto, who could be better? Even Famke Johnson, or however you say her name, and James Marsden, Halle Berry, all these people, perfect. Anna Paquin, first time I ever saw her before she was in True Blood and everything else. She falls so brilliantly into that role. And obviously the characters of the X-Men as well as the characters that follow Magneto are all very, very memorable in what they can do and how they add to the plot, their roles as a whole. But what about bad? Is there anything bad in this movie? Not really. I would say that there are things here and there that weren't perfect, that were technically just okay, just average and standard, but nothing actually stood out as terrible. For instance, action. It's a superhero movie. It's an X-Men movie, and you expect there to be a ton of really, really good action. And is there? Not really. No. I mean, there's a lot of story and a lot of great character development and a lot of great metaphors, like I said before. But there's not really a lot of action. There is some at the end, which is fine and dandy. As a whole, it's not what you would expect, so that would get half points for me. At the end of the day, I'm scoring this 90%. 90, and my original score was 89%, so it went up 1%, but that does make a difference in the long term. Once again, I'm going to try to review 2 of these X-Men movies a week. I might not be able to do it exactly as I imagined it, but I will try to at the very least, and we'll see how I feel about Dark Phoenix once I see it. But anyways, guys, make sure that you tell me what you thought of X-Men 2000 in the comments down below. For YouTube, make sure that you hit subscribe, like it, and hit the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review, which will probably be X2, but who knows, I might review something else random in the meantime. Peace out.